Hello and welcome back to my garden. It is a bright, sunny, beautiful day out, and it's the first one we've had since I can't remember when. When did we do the last video? Monday? So since Monday, it has been raining. And today being Friday is the first sunny day. Saturday and Sunday is supposed to rain as well. And so the last few days while it was raining out, I really didn't get anything done. Actually, I got nothing done in the garden. But what I did do is some thinking. And one of the things that I was thinking about is me and many other YouTubers and probably other people out there are encouraging people to start gardening. And we tell them to go out and buy seeds and start buying their seed trays or making your own and maybe starting a little veg patch or something. But there's more emphasis on starting and then less emphasis on sort of design or style or what type of garden do you want or would you like. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today, is just that garden style or garden design. And there's a lot of different styles of garden out there and different types of garden. And for me personally, what I was initially inspired by was seeing many of the English gardens, because I started watching Gardener's World, and of course they showcase a lot of English gardens because that's where it's from. And I was fascinated, or my attention was drawn towards the large gardens that you would see in estates and maybe some other parks where they have these nice big deep beds and they're filled with lots and lots and lots of beautiful flowers. Maybe something like this. So that was my inspiration for me to start when I started gardening, is that I wanted something to replicate and or to look like that. I knew it was going to take me some time to get there. So my initial goals were just to start planting flowers and seeing what grew, learning how to grow plants, what would tolerate my soil, things like that. And I've learned quite a bit. And since moving here to North Carolina, I've now started building this ridiculously large garden. But those English gardens with their large hedges and straight lines, those were some of the things that inspired me to, when I started gardening, is that was sort of an end goal, still is an end goal for me to go towards. But there are many different styles and there's design concepts and things like that out there. And in the past, I have encouraged you, if you're a new gardener, to start small. And if you're an experienced gardener, please feel free to chime in, leave your own 2 cents. And if I say something that's maybe incorrect, again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, or just feel free to throw in your own 2 cents if you think I'm missing something. So if you're designing a garden, let's say you decided to start gardening and you want to start gardening just vegetables, and that's fine. You can grow just a vegetable patch. You can just have a singular raised bed. That's fine. You don't need to have a design or a style. You could just have a single 4x8 bed, maybe someplace in your backyard or your front yard, wherever you decide to put it. But maybe down the road, you might want to add on to that, maybe a second bed or a third bed. And maybe you want to start growing some flowers alongside those vegetable beds to attract more pollinators to your garden to help your vegetables grow. So these are the things that maybe as you decide to start gardening, just to put a little thought into. You don't have to turn around and decide, okay, I'm going to start gardening today and I'm going to build myself a Japanese style garden or a French potager, or you don't have to do that, but just sort of keep in the back of your mind maybe that as you start gardening, if you do like it, if you do enjoy it, which I'm sure you will, and you start growing more and more, to maybe leave yourself a little room or flexibility to change the garden, to make it what it is you want it to be down the road. And you may not know that right now. What I'm talking about today are just maybe some concepts or ideas or thoughts just to have in the back of your head to, as you start building your garden, to come up with. And when I mean styles or designs, let me just throw a few out there. I just mentioned English garden before, Japanese gardens. You've got a cottage garden, which is a little more of a style. There's potager gardens. You can garden with containers if you want. There's Islamic or Spanish gardens. So if you live in an arid or dry part of the country, that might be a good design choice for you long term. And then there's like a modern or contemporary gardens. You may like very clean lines, or you may like that particular look if you've seen it in a magazine or maybe at a friend's house or something. So you could do those things. But you also don't have to be a slave to any one particular design choice or look. You can mix and match. You can incorporate elements into your garden. So maybe you have a very shady backyard and you want a shade garden. So you'll do a little homework. You figure out what plants will work in your area, what you want to grow, and maybe you went to a trip to Japan or you saw a book on Japanese gardens, but you don't quite like the style per se. You can introduce elements of a Japanese garden into your shade garden to give it a bit more of a Asian feel if that's what you want. You don't have to say this is what I exactly want it to be. My garden here that I'm building, I'm calling it semi-formal. It will have box hedging, but it will not be exclusively box hedging. I will have privet, I will have several other types of plantings, and nothing quite lines up, which is not, a formal garden is very linear, and it's very, I don't want to say perfect, but if all the crossroads cross. My garden doesn't quite do that. If you walk out of the front gate to the vegetable garden, you'll walk into a flower bed. But if you go off slightly to the left, you'll wind up in the flower garden. So I'm calling my garden sort of semi-formal. So there's play there as to what I can do with the garden or what I want to do with the garden, but I'm not going to put myself down the path of it's just got to be this so rigidly. You can if you want to. You could do whatever you want. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make here, is that you can do whatever you want and you can mix and match styles. There's a YouTuber that I watch, Cog Hill Farm, and the gentleman who runs that channel is Jason, and he is building what he calls an Alabama potager garden. So he's taking the concept of a French potager garden and he's putting his own twist on it that'll work for him in Alabama. And then there's other YouTubers I've seen who have very, let's say, vegetable garden, and it's just a production vegetable garden. There's no design to it. There's nothing appealing to it, such as walkways or structural plants or hedges. It's just strictly for growing vegetables, and that's fine. That's what those people want to do. But other people I've seen try to add more decorative elements to their gardens. So for instance, the Impatient Gardener, many of you may be familiar with her. She has a vegetable garden. So when she started her garden, her vegetable garden, I believe that she knew she wanted something in the middle of the vegetable garden along all of her raised beds, but she didn't know what exactly. So she left herself room and eventually decided on getting a large tank that she could have a pond in. Entering the garden, there's a large arch, which I believe she has some sort of either climbing rose or a clematis or something else on there. I think it's a clematis. Correct me if I'm wrong, but either way, she has an arch going into the garden with decorative vine on it. And along the backside, I believe she has several espalier, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, fruits, apples, pears, I think something along those lines. And though they are for production, they're also decorative because of the way that she's training the branches to crisscross and the way that she's laying them out. So it's a decorative touch as well as production. Like I said, you can do whatever you guys want to do. If you're new to gardening, if you just started gardening, many of you who watch this channel, I think already have established gardens. So again, throwing your own 2 cents as to, did you do something like this as well? Do you primarily grow vegetables? And if you do you have any decorative touches to it? Did you lay out your garden in a particular style or manner? Do you just grow flowers? In my garden in New York, because I was inspired by some of those English gardens, and because I had seen pictures in various books and magazines, one of the design elements that I, in hindsight, kind of regret a little bit was my choice of making curvy beds. And that didn't work out too well for me. It was a sort of a pain to mow around some of the curves I had made. So had I stayed in New York, I would have reworked those curves to make it easier for a lawnmower to go around. And I also would have made the beds larger than what they were. Considering the amount of plants that I wanted to grow, in hindsight, I would have made the beds deeper just so I could add more variety in, because also my space was much more confined. Here in my garden now in North Carolina, I've made the border beds to my flower garden relatively narrow. They're only about 8 feet deep, but I've left open the entire center of the flower garden. And at some point I may want to add additional beds and or other decorative items. If I hit the lotto, I could put a large fountain into the middle of the flower garden and then have that maybe surrounded by smaller flower beds. So design choices are really all up to you, but maybe start thinking about them if you're starting off. You may not even have any space to have a decorative garden per se, but let's say you have a balcony or even just a small courtyard, something really small. You can grow in pots, containers. And you could have larger containers towards the back, maybe with taller plants, with your smaller, maybe more decorative pots towards the front. There's actually whole books on this, and there's YouTube channels all about this too. And these are design choices that you guys can make. And then just a couple other things, because I know this video is probably going on a little too long and you're probably starting to lose consciousness now. And if you're not sure about where you want to put things or how you want to arrange things, you can use things like Google Maps. And you can find your house with the satellite view and then just draw on that with built-in tools that come with most computers and tablets and phones nowadays. And then just play with ideas as to, you know, maybe I want a pond here, or maybe I want to design a bed this way. Or if I have my garden here, start my vegetable garden here and I really like vegetable gardening, well, maybe I can add in extra beds and make it more into a potager garden. The sky's the limit, so you can use Google Maps as a tool as well. And Laura over at Garden Answer, she does this as well. She actually just did it a few months ago, I believe, when she was starting to lay out one of her front garden beds that she needs to really fill this year. She's been talking about it and she hasn't been sure what she wanted to do with it. So she started playing with a bunch of different ideas and she was sketching them all out using Google Maps. If you have a drone, you could use a drone, but you don't have to go out and buy a drone to design your garden, which is the whole reason I bring up like the whole Google Maps thing. And gardening, I think, is also very forgiving, because if you make a mistake in the placement of a bed or how you want, for instance, I talked about the curves that I had in my front garden bed in New York, that they were just too tight for me to get comfortably around with the lawnmower. Easy answer is just to expand those beds and reshape the curves to make it a gentler curve so it's easier for me to get around with the lawnmower, or remove the curves altogether and I just could have gone with straight lines. Had I stayed in New York, that's probably what I would have done, is redesign the garden to either go completely straight lines around all the flower beds or add in larger sweeping gentle curves that would have been easier for me to mow with a lawnmower. And I just watched a series on YouTube, Murphy's Garden. I'll try to leave the link below, but she just did a whole series all about design. The whole, I mean, it's, if you watched it from beginning to end, I think she did 5 or 6 episodes. If you're interested in learning more about design and the thought process behind designs and how you can lay out your garden, go check her series out. I think it was very well explained, and she gave a lot of examples with her own garden that she's built over in the UK. I think I've done enough talking for now. If you guys have any further questions, comments, etc., please leave them in the comment. Please leave them below in the comments section. If you guys haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Click that bell icon to be notified of when I do post a new video. And if you guys want me to talk more about this, I'm by far no expert in garden design or concepts, but if you guys want me to explain some more of my ideas that I have here, maybe in this garden, or things that I've seen or done, whatever, please leave those comments below. Whew. Again, I think I've done enough talking for today. I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.